Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another webinar from Philips Lighting-WCCD. Today's webinar is titled Lighting-WCCD Standardized Data for Building Smarter Cities, and it will be presented by Dr. Patricia McCarney, who is the President and CEO of the World Council on City Data and Professor of Political Science and Director of Global Cities Institute at the University of Toronto, Canada. So without any further delay, I hand over to Dr. Patricia McCarney. Thank you so much.
So it's my pleasure to begin the presentation on the World Council on City Data and our work building standardized data across all cities globally. I think it's probably the best thing to do is to start with a very short 2-minute video. You will see probably in much more succinct form in 2 minutes than what I'm able to say, and you know that the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words, well, a video is worth 1,000,000 words. And I know our time is limited this morning, so we'll start with the 2-minute video, and you'll see at the beginning there's 20 cities popping off of the map. Just as by way of introduction, those are the first 20 foundation cities of the WCCD that have been with us since the beginning in building and testing and piloting the first international standard built with ISO, called ISO 37120. As soon as we published ISO 37120 in 2014, these are the 20 cities that have stepped up to help us to roll this out. We are now opening it to all cities globally, and there are upwards of 50 already certified, with another 65 at this point in the pipeline. So there seems to be good traction and a lot of strong interest in having comparable data at city level, so that both cities can speak to each other with a common language, but also so that partners, private sector, government, and international agency partners, as we're building this WCCD, are showing tremendous interest and response as well in the use of the data that is truly comparative, apples to apples data at city level for the first time. So it's really my pleasure to introduce this work, and here's the video.
The world is changing at light speed. Cities are growing and evolving, searching for innovative, intelligent ideas and alternative futures that determine the path forward in urban centers. Diverse cultures, geographies, and economies, with only one common language: data. What if we could find a comprehensive way to compare these diverse cities, with a truly consistent platform for standard urban metrics, so that cities could share knowledge, guide smart and sustainable development and learning, measuring performance to vastly improve quality of life? This is the call of the World Council on City Data and ISO 37120, the first ever international standard for cities. We're at the epicenter of a worldwide effort to standardize urban metrics, a global hub for creative learning partnerships across cities, international organizations, corporate partners, and academia. Rural life is giving way to urban development. Cities are planning for resilience and for changing climates, learning from each other. Together, we're delivering the essential tools cities, business leaders, planners, designers, and professionals need to build more livable, sustainable, and prosperous urban centers, to foster innovation, to provide a clear method for defining and determining indicators that can help measure performance in a universal language, to drive sustainability, quality of life, and investment in cities worldwide. The World Council on City Data, created by cities, for cities.
Thank you very much. for your attention during the short video. I would like to now launch right into the presentation. So ISO 37120, this is the first ISO standard for cities. We started to develop standardized indicators back around 2006. This was published in 2014 as the first standard, but the heavy lifting before we took it to ISO in 2012 was already done by about 255 cities across 83 countries. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how and what is being measured by cities. When we started, we actually started with 9 cities back in the day of 2007. And when we asked cities, what are you measuring now? How many would you prioritize as the most important measures? And what are you spending on data at the local level? It turned out that cities were very committed to data. But when they came to Toronto, 9 cities put all of their indicators on the table. There were 1,100 indicators across 9 cities, but only 2 of those indicators of the 1,100 were actually comparable. So the cities really couldn't converse. They couldn't communicate with each other to compare data, to compare solutions, to compare planning and design and city building exercises, investment in infrastructure, etc., because the data was so uneven. It was either uneven on the basis of a definition of what was being measured or the methodology of what was being measured. So we took that learning in the first instance and we started to build key performance indicators, or KPIs, over those 3 or 4 years, testing and reprioritizing and shifting for about 6 years. In 2012, we went to Geneva to suggest that this document of 100 key performance indicators was really very close to an ISO standard already. We asked to be put on a fast track because the heavy lifting was finished. We ended up in record time producing ISO 37120, which is the first international standard on city indicators. It still has the 100 KPIs as part of that. So ISO 37120 includes 100 indicators, and it's indicators across all the usual themes that cities have prioritized as the type of data that they really do require on their day-to-day business and their day-to-day monitoring of their work. So economy, education, energy, safety, environment, wastewater, transport, those are all the themes that cities have prioritized, and the 100 KPIs that are part of that have been prioritized. It was, as you can imagine, working with all of the cities, and with 28 countries within ISO voting on this standard, every time it went out for international ballot, there was a request for more or less indicators or to change the definitions or methodologies. So we tried to keep it to 100, but at some stages there were over 600 indicators being added into the document and draft. But we did manage in the end to keep it to 100 indicators, and I'll tell you how in a few minutes. So now that the standard is published, we have realize that this is being used for all kinds of initiatives around smart cities, sustainable cities, resilient cities, building more prosperous cities with all of the economic indicators, and inclusive cities. The standardized data is being used by cities for more data-inspired goals, data-informed targets, and data-driven results. As a result of the publication in 2014, we had been building this within what I'm now leading at the university called the Global Cities Institute. But on the day of publication in 2014, we created the World Council on City Data because we needed a way to help cities to be certified against this standard. So we set up a certification protocol, and we set up a very important data portal, which is just data for cities, if you wanted to have a look at it. We have established this certification level, so all of the cities report into the portal online. The back end of the portal has an entire audit protocol built. So every piece of data that the cities report in determining what their level of certification will be is third-party verified. So we have external third-party verifiers which look at the final submissions of the cities and then make a recommendation to our board on the level of certification. So it's important to note, I think, that this certification level is not really about their performance in terms of mobility or climate. It's purely on the quality of the data that they're reporting. So if you're a city that's reporting between 91 and 100 indicators out of the total of 100, then they are awarded a platinum certification. And I think it's important to note too that many cities, even the smallest of cities that are reporting, are achieving, silver, gold, platinum, and they're moving upwards through the system every year. There's some of our cities that are now in their second and third year of reporting that are moving up through the system. And as I mentioned, that we have small cities and we have very large cities. So the Shanghais and Buenos Aires of the world, and then we have cities under 5,000 and under 10,000. So we have no limit. At first we thought we might limit this, but in terms of perhaps setting a lower threshold of 100,000. But it turned out that it's the cities that are under 100,000 that also have very good data, but they also get certified quickly because the data is less embedded in city halls. They're less siloed, so the smaller cities actually can get certified quite quickly. And moreover, smaller cities are, I would say, as intent on building smart, prosperous, inclusive cities as the large ones. So we decided just to take off the lower threshold of 100,000. So now there's no minimum population in certification. What's been happening is that as we build a culture of data in the cities that are already certified and working with the cities around the world, we're seeing that this culture of data is now leading to a culture of innovation. Once we have standardized data, once the data is standardized so that Toronto can speak to LA and LA can speak to Buenos Aires and Buenos Aires can speak to Dubai and Shanghai, etc., through this common language of standardized data, we start to see solutions travel city to city. We just held our summit for the first 50 cities to be certified in Dubai, hosted by the Executive Council of Dubai. And there, this framework that I'm describing, standardized data, building analytics that builds knowledge, that builds innovation, and this global learning to peer-to-peer city, depending on size, income levels, etc. That conversation happened in Dubai, and it's our first meeting around data, and I know it may sound boring to some. Basically, the conversations around data on stage and off stage in Dubai were extremely exciting because cities are actually comparing notes and talking about their progress and their need to learn from each other. So it was really a wonderful symposium that we just came home from. So we are rolling this out now, as I mentioned, globally. There's upwards of 50 cities in the pipeline. You can see it's pretty well geographically represented. We're now working with Buenos Aires to help to roll that out a little further in Latin America, etc. So there's about 65 more cities now in the pipeline for certification, so we should hit that 100 mark, that magical number, by sometime this year. I thought it might be interesting to also describe our growing relationship around 37120 and this high caliber data that's from a more business perspective. We're partnering with a number of private companies and also a lot of UN agencies where we're thinking about how this data, and the city managers of many cities are telling us that they're using this now for investment opportunities. It really does help to drive an economic development and competitiveness framework for attracting cities. Once you have data that is peer-to-peer, you can start to say to investors, potential investors, to drive for foreign direct investment, here's our competitive advantage in terms of investment. And when it's global, also it allows our economic development professionals within the city to take this data on the global stage. And this is happening with many of our cities already, and we're helping them to do that. I should mention also, we're just about to release on this front something we're calling the Investable Cities Index. This is an index that actually is coming from demand from our cities on how best to use this data. When we ask the question, if we were to build an initial index after we hit the 60 cities mark, what is it that you would like us to build this index around? We were thinking they might tell us a mobility index or a sustainable cities index, but no, they said they would like to build an investable cities index, a competitiveness index, or something around economic development. So the Investable Cities Index will be released in the next few months, and I would be happy to share that. It'll be posted on our portal at that time. Finally, another point about ISO in the process of the International Organization for Standardization in Geneva. At ISO, as we were introducing the standard, the 100 KPIs, every time it went out for ballot, and I'm sure many of you on the call know the ISO process, every time it went out for global ballot, member countries and their mirror committees, which include many of their cities, kept asking for more indicators, especially around two areas. One was, how about we add more indicators for smart cities, especially some of the ICT indicators? Can we add some of those to 37120? And then the second major request was for indicators for resilient cities. And we know, having implemented the draft before publication, that it was already a challenge for 100 indicators, and we wanted to draw the line that we didn't grow the standard to be too large and too burdensome for cities. So we made a compromise in ISO and said, look, we will publish 37120 with the 100 indicators, but we will take a stab at two new indicator sets and two new draft standards. So we have been working on these now for the last year and a half at ISO. The next meeting is in Berlin in a few weeks. I chair the working group in Technical Committee TC268, which is on building indicators for cities. This working group has about 28 member countries, so it's a really wonderful group of people and experts. We have, again, more or less been put on a fast track. They've already assigned the numbers for these two new standards. So one is ISO 37122, indicators for smart cities, and ISO 37123, indicators for resilient cities. So those two draft standards and the frameworks for those standards are now built. They are in a committee draft as of the Berlin meeting in a few weeks, and they will be going out as a draft international standard likely this fall, and to be published as early as the spring of 2018. And I should mention too that these three standards now, we're calling them a family of standards. Because 37120 in fact has about 50 or 60 indicators that would be the basis of a smart city standard as well as of a resilient city standard. So we see the connectivity between these three as interwoven. So we think for implementation in cities, when we roll these three out together, there will be an opportunity for cities to report on 37120 and then build on to 122 with the additional 40 or 50 indicators in each of these new ones. So I thought I would just turn now to some of the data points that are quite important that are emerging. We tried to build the portal so that it was very user-friendly, so that a citizen can log on and ask questions about their city, or a high school student can log on and say, how safe is my city, or how clean is my air? So the landing page is precisely these kinds of questions with the single data point. So how do people move around my city? This is a very high number for London, by the way, when compared globally. How connected is my city? How innovative is my city? How prosperous is my city? How green is my city? And that's the shallow dive. Then you can take a deeper dive into the portal, and you can actually graph and look at comparators across the 17 themes of the ISO indicators. So you just select any theme that you wish. Say you're interested in transportation. You can look at the mobility indicators that pop up when you hover over the mobility icon. And as soon as that happens, you can choose any one of the indicators. So say you chose kilometers of high capacity public transport per 100,000 population, and you can select which cities, a subset of cities, for example, that you're interested in. You can see how your city compares to other cities. So in this case, you can see the range of cities that are above and below this calculated mean. You can look at green cities, fine particulate matter, for example, the particulate matter 2.5 data, and see which cities are, having more safe and cleaner air. You can see Boston and Melbourne and Cambridge, etc., down at the lower end, which means they have a lower PM 2.5, and then higher pollution levels in air quality in some of the cities of both the global south and also Shanghai and Johannesburg, Riyadh, etc. We can look at energy derived from renewable sources as well. So this is part of the green city cluster of indicators. Greenhouse gas emissions. This GHG emissions is actually part of the global protocol that was established by the World Bank and ICLEI and other partners. So we have adopted that protocol into the ISO standard. This is one of the 100 indicators, the GHGs, according to the local protocol for greenhouse gas emissions in cities. Energy consumption of public buildings per year. This is a really important topic, I know, here in Toronto and in many of the cities, such as Bogota and others that are working on this very diligently. So I thought now I would just say a few words about how cities are starting to use this data. So we've been preparing these 3-page reports on all the cities as they report on the data and they're certified. We put out a 3-page report that highlights one of those data points. So in this case, how do Londoners get to work commuting without using a car? So commute other than a personal automobile, that's the indicator. 74% of Londoners move to work every day outside of a personal automobile. So we started to, connect the dots around what does this mean for air quality? What does this mean for their GHG levels? And as we get longitudinal data over the years, we can start to actually have really strong analytics that help to showcase those results and impact over the years on various improvements that London is still not satisfied with 74. They want it to be higher. On the Smart Cities front, we're building reports such as this one at the request of the City of Toronto here on Toronto, and it's an assessment of indicators around smart cities. And finally, I just wanted to say that we have the traction on this has been wonderful with our cities, and I have to say also that the interest from partner organizations has been extremely rapid and very inspiring for us. So we built partnerships, for example, with UNISDR out of Geneva on disaster risk and resilience to help build the new standard. We've partnered with United Nations Environment Program and ICLEI. We're partnering with many international organizations and national governments. It's important also to note that while we thought when we were rolling this out, we would be partnering with mostly our cities and mostly working with cities directly. But what's been happening most recently is that national governments are beginning to take an interest in standardized data for their cities. And why? Well, I think a large part of it is to have comparative data within your own country when you're formulating investment decisions around, for example, infrastructure or innovation, this comparative data within a single country is very valuable for national governments because it just didn't exist. I can give you the example of here in Canada, Toronto's data, for example, isn't comparable to other cities like Vancouver because it's been gathered differently. It goes back to my original point with the 1,100 indicators with only 2 that were comparable across 9 cities. Within a single country, this is also the case. So we're now discussing with our government here in Canada, who is about to roll out a very large infrastructure spend. It's the largest infrastructure budget in the history of Canada under our Prime Minister Trudeau. This is, the need for good, solid, high-caliber, third-party verified data within countries across the cities of Canada becomes quite critical to guiding both a baseline to guide infrastructure spending, but also a year-over-year impact assessment of those infrastructure investments. So this is an example where national governments are now approaching us to think about building standardized data just within a single country. So we're working now in India to support the smart cities movement there in partnership with Tata Trusts. We just certified Pune, Surat, and Jamshedpur. We're working in China to think about smart cities and infrastructure investment with cities in China. We have an office now in Beijing as part of an innovation lab under the ministry. We have working in partnerships growing in Mexico. So this national government has come a little bit unplanned, the national government partnerships, but it's really quite important to think about that as we move forward as part of our own business plan here at the WCCD. We are a not-for-profit organization, so to build this out more quickly, the national handshake is becoming quite critical for us. And finally, the partnerships that we're also growing with our corporate partners, Philips, of course, and Siemens, have been very valuable in thinking about LED lighting and infrastructure investment, etc. Our partnership I mentioned with UNISDR and the United Nations Environment Program around the resilience standard, etc. Tata Trust in India. We've partnered now with this national statistics body of the Netherlands, CBS, to think about localizing national statistical data and to consider certification of cities across the Netherlands. So Eindhoven, Erlen, I guess The Hague is stepping up as well. Zwolle is just about to be certified. Amsterdam, Rotterdam are already certified. The Executive Council of Dubai, who has been an incredible partner for us, who just co-hosted the summit, the Global Cities Summit in Dubai in March, has been a wonderful partner. And I think the rest kind of stand on their own. We can talk about them more in Q&A if you're interested. And it's at this point that I wanted to mention that we have, we've started to build various reports beyond those 3-page reports that I mentioned. And I would like to call on my colleague here in the room with me in Toronto, Matthew Lynch, who is our Vice President in terms of partnerships for the WCCD, to tell you a little bit about this newest report that we launched on stage in Dubai in March in partnership with 2 of our cities, Buenos Aires and Los Angeles, and in partnership with Philips around LED lighting. Our data, as I mentioned, is across 17 themes, so it allows us to track investment in various infrastructure projects, not just solely in the infrastructure piece itself, but a broader array of impacts. So, for example, if you're investing in a transit project, what does it mean for air quality and commute time and quality of living and youth unemployment, etc. So the measurements are broader based than the single infrastructure assessments that usually occur. And this is a really nice example of that. So Matthew, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Patricia, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is an example of, as Patricia said, of I think two nice aspects of our work. It's about putting the data to work, and also demonstrating how it can be a great convener of partners, and in this case Philips Lighting, and working with two of our foundation cities, Los Angeles and Buenos Aires. So I'll start. I think the place to start with this is, as many, and I know we have some people from city government on the call. Cities at the moment are facing an enormous array of complex challenges, whether it's maintaining prosperity and employment in an increasingly competitive and globalized economy, addressing the challenges of sustainability, a transition to low carbon and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's about resilience. It's about addressing inclusion and inequality, and still at the same time providing high quality basic municipal services, all within increasingly constrained city government budgets. So this picture I think will be familiar to many of you. One of the exciting things about the new emerging array of smart solutions is that many of these solutions can make positive contributions simultaneously to addressing an array of these interconnected challenges. But as Patricia said, to really understand those benefits, you need a broad package of measures at the city scale to understand what those benefits are. And that's the very important role that ISO 37120 can play. So what we've done with this report is look at the specific opportunity around high efficiency connected public lighting. And what we wanted to do with this report was to provide a framework to thinking about that broad array of benefits, focusing on the specific cases of Los Angeles and Buenos Aires. And we did that because, as I said, they're cities in the WCCD network, but they're also lighthouse projects for the City Touch solution that Philips Lighting offered that provides a very effective mechanism for managing and maintaining city street lighting through an array of supporting connected solutions. This is the launch of the report just recently at our Dubai summit. That's Dan Caroselli there speaking, who's the head of Director of Performance Management and Innovation in the Mayor's Office for Los Angeles, and also our colleague Facundo Gayo, who is in the Planning Office in Buenos Aires. Now, just quickly focusing on those two cities. Firstly, Los Angeles. As many of you are aware, it's a leader on LED lighting transition. They have 215,000 light points across the city, covering 7,000 miles of streetway. They have to deal with 70,000 repairs every year and 40,000 calls from citizens, outage calls that they have to address. So one of the largest public lighting systems in the world. So LA have been a leader. They were one of the first movers in wide-scale transition to LED, and as I said, have been one of the key leaders in adopting the connected solution through City Touch. The result of that, 140,000 lights now LED, and 110,000 of those connected through City Touch. And the savings and the benefits, the immediate benefits of the city are quite amazing. 63% reduction in energy use, $9 million savings for over 47,000 tonnes of GHG emissions reduced. And also, because of the predictive and improved maintenance and workflow outcomes based on the connected lighting solution, the outage time goes from days to just hours. Similarly, in Buenos Aires, another large-scale transition to citywide connected LED lighting. Here, the 90,000 light points changed, and energy savings of more than 50% as well. So two very interesting examples of really the power of the delivering smart, sustainable lighting solutions at the city scale. So we've documented those benefits, and then the report takes another step, starting to look at that wider suite of benefits that you can realise through improved public lighting. It's known, and there's some good literature reviews that that tell us that improving public lighting can reduce property crime by an order of perhaps 25%. So it can have a significant impact on crime statistics, but also perhaps even more importantly, improving perceptions of safety within communities, which has all sorts of important benefits in terms of economic activity, in terms of people, for example, more likely to use public transit at night. So a whole array of benefits that come from that improved sense of safety and security. Similarly with traffic safety, while only 25% of traffic movements are in nighttime, 40% of serious accidents, both with vehicles and pedestrians, happen in the hours of darkness. And also we have a number of literature reviews that with various measures, but perhaps in the order of 20 to 30% improvement in reducing accident rates where you have significant improvements in the quality of street lighting. Similarly with economic development, perhaps a more difficult thing to measure, but we do know from looking at perhaps some specific major lighting projects that these in themselves can produce major economic benefits. For example, there's a good case study around the Bay Bridge in San Francisco to Oakland, where the economic benefits of what was a fairly modest investment in lighting for the bridge produced $80 million in tourism and other associated benefits for San Francisco County. So we've started to sort of put together that evidence base of those wider benefits, and then started to think in this next slide about how cities could use this wider set of ISO 37120 indicators to start thinking about those benefits. So here is a sort of a schematic that shows a number of the indicators in the ISO 37120 set that relate to this set of benefits, and giving a sort of a conceptual model of how cities could think about monitoring these over time. So obviously that's a way that cities can understand, can start thinking about these benefits, but it's also an important way that other cities who are considering these types of solutions through the power of having comparable data can think about the benefits that could accrue to them and their citizens as well. Now, I think an important caveat is, a lot of these things from a measurement perspective are complex, and obviously there's very important considerations around attribution. So what we're doing, we've sort of laid this out as an initial sort of framework, working with closely with our Philips Lighting colleagues. What the next step that we're talking about now is starting to really sort of build out that evidence base around these benefits of improved high efficiency connected public lighting. And also we're interested in working with cities that want to really take this forward and building some new specific case studies using the analytical power of the standardized ISO 37120 data points. So that report is available on our website. Please, I encourage you, for those interested in not just in lighting, but in more broadly the application of the ISO 37120 data, to download it. It's available if you go to the partner section of our website and the Philips page. The link is provided there right at the top. So thank you very much, everyone. That now concludes the sort of formal presentation part of the webinar.